Hi everybody. I hope everything is fine. Hope I find you well after summer holidays, and I hope that the audio is okay for everybody. So this training is about environmental footprint, and this is the real aim of our project, isn't it? The subject of our project is Edufootprint. So we are trying to calculate the environmental footprint of the educational system. So our subject is schools. And I would like to give you the further tools to understand how to use our calculator. And so the effort I'm asking you is to always try to make a connection with our calculator. And so maybe you will better understand all the data that we will need just to calculate the environmental footprint of schools. So let's start. I will make an introduction about green product and green market. And then we will go through the European Commission documents, which are the documents that stay on the basis of this concept. And then we will talk about the main principles of PEF and OF, and then some examples of PEF and OF. One for PEF, which is regarding wine, and the other one is retails and is connected with the organization environmental footprint. At the end, just one slide about our calculator and some details, some information that I would like to give you about calculator itself. If you need any question, just do it by using our chat. There is Mr. Cariani that is checking the chat, and so he will tell me if there will be a question. So what is green market and green products? The global market for low carbon environmental goods and services is estimated at more than 4 trillion euros. And the European companies market share is 21%, and this is an information of UK Department for Business, Innovation and Skills. So it's really consistent. Market of green products generates positive returns. Then 26% of European citizens often buy environmentally friendly products. And another value is that 54% of them sometimes do it, sometimes buy green products. This information is shown in European barometers in 376. And then environmental impacts are the third most important factor for European consumers after quality and price. So we are trying to go to this direction. Environmental friendly products are better than the other ones. Other information, 39% of consumers say business claims about the environmental are not accurate. Then 48% of consumers say current environmental labels are not clear. There are many environmental labels, and all the consumers do not know how to make a choice and which one choose. And only 6% of European citizens trust the producers' claims about their products' environmental performance completely, because all the information that are now in the green market are not clear, and consumers do not trust this information. Moreover, investors are interested in market of green products. The investors base behind the Carbon Disclosure Project grew from 35 investors with assets of more or less 4 trillion USD in 2003 to 655 investors with assets of 78 trillion USD in 2012. So there is a growth in this item. And more than there are many businesses executives that said that they could not keep up with consumer demand for sustainable products and services, and 62% declared that sustainable investments were motivated by consumers' expectation for green products. So I just read this information just to make you understand that there is a big interests in this kind of market, and there is a growth inside it. But as you can see from these slides, there is big criticalities, which is great numbers of green labels, and the consumers are really confused about it, about which one they can choose, which information each label contains. More than 44 environmental labels in the world, and for example, only for greenhouse gases, only for the greenhouse gases items, 80 leading reporting methods and initiatives exist. So you can understand that market needs to make this item really clear, more items clearer. And so the answer is, what is green, and how do I prove that my product or company is green? I need a methodology which is unique for everybody. Then, if I choose only one approach, I would like to be sure that this will be accepted by everyone. Then maybe I have to prove that my green choice is different, and I hope to prove I'm green in different ways to different clients. Sometimes my clients are citizens, sometimes my clients are companies, so they need different information. Then I can have this question: will consumers and business partners understand my claim? And does green mean more expensive? And I mean, the market must have a level playing field. So they need to start from same level, and green products does not mean that this product will be more expensive. So we need order we need to make order, and we need support from European Commission. So we need to identify some calculation rules that everybody will use. Then we need to identify similar reporting requirements for companies, because if I will do same reporting, then the consumers can understand what is inside them and can make a choice. They can compare the different reports. Then we have to agree on what do we mean with green, and when a product can be considered better from the environmental point of view than another one. So when I say green product, when I say green market, I just really know what these terms, what these words means. Then we need a consistent policy that can support the competitiveness of organization, and we need that all the country identifies a policy, an internal policy, just to identify some regulation for green products and green markets. And this policy must base on environmental performance of products. At the end, the capability of distinguish the peculiarities of each product means that harmonization does not mean that all the products are equals. So we have to identify the sectors in which all the programs has to put, in which sector all the products are included, and then we can make a comparison between them. And we don't have to compare only equal products, but different products in the same sector. So what European Commission said, because this process started in many years ago, and the first one was in 2003, and the European Commission prepared documents whose title is Integrated Product Policy Communication. And inside these documents is stated that LCA is the best framework for assessing the potential environmental impacts of products. So LCA is the methodology to use just to calculate the environmental performance of a product. And in this date, in this period, 2003, the European Commission said that it will develop a handbook of best practice, and that can be used by all the companies. Then coordination to make data more accessible and systematically collected. So European Commission said that an effort will be needed just to make all data accessible, and all this data should be systematically collected and systematically checked. And then databases of LCA will be useful, and this database has to be updated at regular intervals. Then European Commission said that it will develop a platform to facilitate communication and exchanging. In fact, if you check in the net, there is a platform of European Commission about LCA and green product and environmental footprint. But in 2003 years, there are many standards about green product. For example, 14,040 and 14,044 is ISO standards regarding LCA and how to implement an LCA. Then there is 40,025, which is an ISO standards who is concerning labels and green labels to give to the products, and particularly labels of third type. Then there are other standards, for example, 40,064, which is the standards about greenhouse gases, how to calculate GHG of a production or of a product. Then, for example, there is 40,067, which is standards concerning carbon footprint. So there are many standards that are concerning green products. European Commission make the ILCD handbook, which is International Reference Life Cycle Data System, which is a handbook that can help all the technician or the company just to implement an LCL life cycle. And then there should be tools and database, which, as you can see, is the lower part of this pyramid and the part that needs to be improved. More or less 8 years passes, and the European Commission wrote these conclusions, these documents, and during this council, the Commission was invited to develop a common methodology about the quantity assessment on environmental impacts of products throughout their life cycle. So as you can see, life cycle analysis is the methodology that has to be on the basis of all this process. And the aim was to support the assessment and labeling of products. So more or less 7 years ago, started this process that aims to identify a common methodology and with two main aims. The first one was to identify how to calculate this environmental performance, and the other one is how to communicate these environmental performances to consumers throughout labeling of products. The year after, then a roadmap was published. This roadmap has the title Resource Efficiency Roadmap. It was September, more or less, 2011, and we were in Brussels, and the European Commission set out a roadmap that was aimed at transforming Europeans' economy into a sustainable one within 2050. So the landscape was European economy, European market, and inside this roadmap, wants to outline how we can achieve the resource-efficient growth. This roadmap wants to identify the economic sectors that consume the most resources, and once this roadmap identified this economic sector, then about this economic sector, all the efforts has to be put, because we need to make some suggestion about tools and indicators to help guide action in Europe and internationally. In Europe first and international after. So we need to identify which are the economic sectors that consume the most resources, and then we have to identify tools and indicators just to study, to check, to compare all the products inside these economic sectors. First of all in European field and then internationally. Then the roadmap suggests to create business and job opportunities from activities such as recycling, better product design, material substitution, and eco-engineering. And this is the new green economy. Another effort made by European Commission was this communication, just writing this communication. It was 2013, and it was published, this communication, titled Building the Single Market for Green Products, with the aim of facilitating better information on the environmental performance of products and organizations. Inside this communication, for the first time, it was used the term of PEF, Product Environmental Footprint, and OF, Organization Environmental Footprint. So in this communication establishes the PEF and the OF methods, and the communication recommends the use of these methods through a Commission recommendation. So the communication is parallel with the Commission recommendation 2013 number 179. And this communication announces a 3-year testing period to develop product and sector-specific rules. So from 2013 started this 3-year testing period, which is already finished. And during these 3 years, many companies, European companies, make different studies about different sectors and about different products, and just to prepare a lot of reports, a lot of case of study that the European Commission has to check and has to verify in order to provide principles for communicating environmental performance. So after this 3 years testing period, there will be a period of verification of this case studies, and then it will provide specific principles to communicate the environmental performance of a green product for the future. And this communication supports international efforts towards more coordination in methodological development and data availability. So another aim of this document, this European Commission documents, is to make all the data available to European companies and to European technicians. Let's say that today product policies is more or less like this figure. As you can see on the basis, there is a product sustainability from minor values to higher values, and here there are the numbers of products in the market. In this part of the graph of the diagram, there are all the least sustainable products. Maybe in the future, all the products that are inside this area will not be very important for the consumers. Then inside here, there is the existing market towards greater sustainability. And here, more or less, there are the green public procurement. The product sustainability just grows inside here. And which kind of intervention? For less pricing and tradings, and then voluntary initiatives, producers' responsibility, business support, procurement, just green labeling, public information. From here onwards, there is eco-label, and all the indicators that stay inside this area are out of LCA methodology, because they are driven by eco-label requirements. And so this is the product policies of today, and then in a while we will see what which one will be the product policies of tomorrow. So how to start this process of definition of environmental footprint? So first of all, what we have to do is starting from using something already existing. So there are, as we said, a lot of standards that are based on existing methodology, and these methodologies are correct. So why don't we start from the contents of these standards? As you see, there is ISO, LCA ISO, and then carbon footprint. This one, PAS 2050, is a standard, English standard, specific English standard. Then there is ecological footprint. Then there is a greenhouse gas protocol. And so just start from trying to put all the information contained inside these standards together. These are standards about product, and this one are standards concerning organization. So as you can see, there are many other standards which regard organization and green organization. So the first step is to analyzing the existing methodology and try to find a common one, starting from all the good criteria, the good requirements included in this regulation, in these standards. And so how all this information are connected with PEF and OF. So the process, as we said, started from what already exists. Just make an analysis and identify all the important requirements to follow. The second main aim is that we have to use LCA methodology. That's why we make an LCA training 2 months ago. And then this is the reason why our calculator is based on studying all the phases of our educational system, because LCA methodology is the one that we have to use. Then we have to identify how to calculate this environmental footprint. So we need to identify the specific steps to a company has to follow when it wants to calculate the environmental footprint of its product or its service. As we saw, there is a test. There is a test period which lasts 3 years, and then let's make a test. So during this phase, many companies, European companies from different sectors, went to European Commission and says, I just want to participate for this testing and with my products. And this period starting from 2016 and ends in 2013 and ended in 2016. Then we have to establish how to communicate all the results. And then finally, we have identified which is green products, which are green products, which are green organizations, and we just identify the rules to make comparison between green products inside the same sectors and between green organizations inside the same sector. So the aim was to improve the availability of clear, reliable and comparable information of environmental performance of products and organization. Clear because, as we saw before this, before environmental footprint, there are many information which are not very clear, and the consumers do not know which one they have to choose. Then they have to be comparable information, because consumers need because a consumer needs to make a comparison before in order to make a choice, and then has to be reliable. That's it. So at the in the center of this diagram, there is the communication, the European communication, which is regarding building the single market for green products. And as you can see, there are 3 years pilot phase. The communication wants to identify communication principles, just to define if I need to make, I don't know, a report about my green product, or just a label, or just a publication in the net. So which will be the communication principles? Then communication recommendation identify these 2 new terms, which are product environmental footprint and organization environmental footprint. And at the end, this communication wants to achieve an international dialogue. At this point, is only a European dialogue, but for the future, the European Commission would like to achieve a dialogue on international level. And then there is this UCPD guidance. What is this? This is a directive on the letters mean unfair. U is for unfair, C is for commercial, and P is for practices. So your unfair commercial practices directive. This guidance was adopted in 2005, and this document wants to boost consumers' confidence and make it easier for businesses, especially small and medium sizes, to carry out cross-border trading. And thanks to the directive, national enforcers have been able to curb a broad range of unfair business practices, such as providing untruthful information to consumers or using aggressive marketing technique to influence their choices. And its legal framework is proving well suited to assess the fairness of new online practices that are developing in parallel with the evolution of advertising sales technique. So this guide is useful document for the company which participated to the pilot phase. And this is the product policies of tomorrow. So the European Commission would like to achieve this result. In this area, there will not be no more product. All the green products will stay in this part of diagram, and they will have information freely accessible in order to let the consumers be a right choice. And there will be a range inside that the green products will stay, and there will be a value after that, plus additional requirements are required. And all these additional requirements are not established by LCA. This is an example of green label that is now used, and maybe it could be an example of future green label for green products. So what is environmental footprint? Environmental footprint is a methodology for the quantification of environmental footprint of the products. The term footprint is just because we want to measure the footprint we left on our planet. And this kind of image just really helps consumer to identify with a picture the impact of a product. This methodology is based on existing methods and standards, and it covers a broad range of environmental impacts indicators. As maybe you saw in the calculators, there are 15 environmental impact indicators. And one of the aim of this project, environmental footprint, is to understand which are the environmental impact indicators really important, just to transfer the information to consumers. Environmental footprint is based on PEF-CR and OEF-SR, which are product environmental footprint category rules, and for organization is sector rules, which are some rules that contain all the requirements a product needs to follow just to be a green product, and just to make a calculation about its environmental footprint. The purposes are these are the main purposes, are to provide specific guidance for calculating and reporting products' life cycle environmental impacts, to focus in the most important parameters in determining the environmental performance of a given product. As I said, we calculate 15 indicators, but we have to identify which one are more important than the others. And after having identified these important parameters, we have to change our way to our production inside our company, or maybe we have to change a way of packaging. We have to ask our supplier to make some improvement to its services, and something like this. And then PEF and OEF allows to comparability between PEF calculations within the same product category. As I said, a consumer needs to know which product is better than another one as regarding its environmental performance. These are the product groups that participated to pilot phase. There were 2 waves. In the first waves, these were the sector identified, and inside all these factors, many of European company participated to this pilot phase. As you can see, there are batteries, paints, hot and cold water pipe systems, liquid household detergents, IT equipment. So maybe now you can understand why we put inside the calculator such kind of information, like detergent, like IT equipment. Then metal sheets, non-leather shoes, photovoltaic electric generation, stationery, intermediate paper products, t-shirts, uninterrupted power suppliers, retail sectors, and copper sector. Then there is another wave of pilots, which are concerning leather sector, thermal insulation, beer, coffee, fish, dairy products, feed, meat, pet food, olive oil, pasta, wine, and packed water. For OF, there are only retails and copper production. What does it mean? It means that for each kind of for each of these sectors, there are companies which during these 3 years make a study about their products, one, two, or many products, and then they make a report. They receive the verification by some identified bodies, and then it means that all the companies which participated of this pilot phase just presented some reports, as I said, and now the European Commission is checking these reports, and in 1 year it will be presented the result of the verification of all these studies. So they want to, the European Commission want to identify the rules to follow, just to identify a level playing field for the companies inside the green market. Then there is, as I said, all these case study has been verified by technical bodies. So they need to identify the technical implementability and technical requirements to carry out a verification which has to be equal for everybody for the future. Then communication, so how to vehicle the communication to the consumers. For the future, European Commission would like to identify, to implement tools which will help the small and medium enterprises. The European Commission would like to reach an international dimension of this kind of study, and then would like to identify horizontal working groups, which start to work now, but will continue in the future. What is new in environmental footprint? First of all, the new is that a single set of rules valid for the European market does not exist by now. So this is the first new item. Then another new is definition of a representative product organization. As we will see in the example that are inside this training, the results now are concerning a representative product, a representative organization. And this is the first time that there is a definition of representative product organization. Then another new is materiality approach. So focus where it counts. And we need to identify which is the problem, and then we need to solve it. When we have all the numbers of the results, we will do a sensibility analysis just to understand which are the weaknesses of my products or my organization. And there I have to focus my efforts. Environmental footprint is a new way of looking at foreground and background. In LCA, there are a different way to show the results. There are not foreground and background. Then free availability of secondary data. European Commission wants to make all the data available to everybody, to all the company, and they want to update the data on frequent intervals. Then there is a benchmark, and where relevant and appropriate, classes of environmental performance. So that's true. In the future, probably there will be classes of environmental performance for different kind of green products. Maybe this division of in classes, maybe there will be countries that don't like it, but this is the direction the European community wants to take. So the PEF pilot phase started in November 2013. Then the pilot phase in 2014, all the participants write the PCRs. So the product rules to calculate the environmental footprint. In 2015, PEF studies and background reports have been created. And in 2016, communication of PEF study results to users has to be published. I know that this term was changed, and now is 2017, so the end of this current year. And from in the next year, their evaluation of results will start by European Commission. And in 2019 onwards, if this project will be successful, there will be a possible use of PEF method in legislation and voluntary schemes. I know that, for example, just in France, there are products for whom a particular label are needed, and French legislation established that some information has to be inside the label of some kind of green products. And maybe this will be the strategy of other European countries. So the process, the PEF-CR development process, start from definition of PET product category, and for definition this PEF product, we need to do a benchmark. Then, after defining a PEF product category, we need to define a product model to use based on representative product. Then there will be a PEF screening, and PEF screening identifies the following information that you can see here. So, most relevant life cycle stages, most relevant processes, most relevant environmental impacts, and indication of benchmark. What does it mean? It means that when I just calculate a product environmental footprint and I have the results, I have to identify the most relevant life cycle stages inside my company or as regards organization through all the supplier chain. Then I have to identify the most relevant processes, relevant as far as environment is concerned. So, which are the worst processes for environment. Then I have to identify the most relevant environmental impacts. That means that I have to choose which indicator are more important in comparison of all the others. And then I have to just indicate to my company which are the changing to implement inside my process. Then draft a PEF-CR, and then the supporting study. This study provides information and confirmation on PEF-CR implementability, the most relevant environmental impacts, the most relevant life cycle stages, the most relevant processes, data requirements, and verification requirements. So this one is the same as the other one, but data requirements is regarding the requirement that data has to possess in order to make the study clearer. And then we have to establish the verification requirements. I mean, all the verification bodies will follow the same requirements just to verify a study of PEF. Then there is a confirmation of benchmark and determination and performance classes. At this stage, the final benchmarks for the product categories is defined and classes of performance are identified. And then there is the final PEF category rules. This is the process that is on the basis of all the project. But which is, I said that there is definition of PET product category, but what does it mean? It means that we need to identify a standard or point of reference against which any comparison can be made. So I have to identify the product I have to study, the sector I have to study. In the content of product environmental footprint, it refers to the average environmental performance of the representative product which is sold in the European market. So first of all, the importance that is refers to an average. So if I have to study olive oil or wine, I have to identify the average environmental performance of this product category. So I need to specify which is the product category I have to study. And this product has to be sold in the European market. I'm sold with which means that this product can be made in another country, but has to be sold inside the European market. Then a benchmark may eventually be used, if necessary, if any, in the content of communicate environmental performance of a project belonging to the same category. Then when, now that we can just go through the example, all the information will be clearer. I mean, the definition of product categories, for example, for category wine, means, for example, for still wine, so as you can see, there is no name of a specific product, no name of a specific organization, but just requirements that a still wine should have to be a representative product for which environmental footprint can be calculated. So this still wine, for the winemaking phase, they established that these values has to be present. 63.5% of red conventional and 4% of red organic. 29.9% of white conventional and 2.1% of white organic. Then this still wine should have aging in oak barrels for a period of 12 months. And 50% of still red glass bottled wine and 3% of still white glass bottled wine. Then there are requirements for primary packaging. So as you can see, there are glass bottle with different types of stoppers. Then there is a bag-in-box, PET bottle, and beverage carton. Types of stoppers used in glass bottles with this kind of requirements. And then the production phase needs to possess this characteristic. 75% in the European market and to 25% abroad for still wine. Then for sparkling wine, there are the requirements that you can see written here. So first of all, you have the category, you have identified the category wine, and or the company who wants to calculate a PEF for its wine product, first of all, has to check if its product presents these characteristics. Then environmental footprint review started from define goals of PEF study, as in LCA. We have to define goals we have to define scope, we have to create the resource use and emission profile, we have to conduct the environmental footprint impact assessment, which is just calculate the indicators. And then we have to just give an interpretation of the results achieved and make a reporting phase. All these phases are regulated by category rules, PEF category rules. So this is the documents which stays in the first step of the process. Then when I check that my products has the requirements written inside this document, then I can start with the review following these steps, these 5 steps. So a PEF study has to be carried out according to these category rules, product environmental footprint category rules for the specific product group. Then only if the category rules are available, the PEF study can be used for comparative purposes. If these category rules are not existing, then the first step, the previous step, is to just write the category rules, presented it to European Commission, and then when these category rules will be published, then I can start with the PEF study itself. The category rules define the level of details of a product group. For example, sparkling wine and still wine. So as you can see, there are not also wine and that's it. The product is wine. No, the product is or sparkling wine or still wine, because they need different kind of processes inside their life cycle. So first of all, these are the 2 main categories inside this inside the group of wine products. So within inside the phase of scope definition, when I'm starting to define the scope of my PEF study, it is necessary to define the functional unit. I don't know if you remember when we talked about life cycle analysis. Even in this case, just because we have to use this kind of methodology, even in LCA, we have to identify, first of all, the functional unit. And to identify this functional unit, a company can try to answer of these 4 questions. And if the final functional unit they identified just answers to all these 4 questions, so the functional unit is no,
Vabbè, che possiamo dire?